All right. Good evening, everyone. You are welcome to the class this week. We celebrate everyone that is viewing our channel. We want to appreciate you for bearing with us over the time. We want to apologize for not coming live last week. We are really sorry about that. We had to attend to some things. That's why we could not come live. So we are really sorry to all our followers. We are here this day. So we want to set the ball rolling. So we appreciate all the respondents thus far. We have received many responses on our WhatsApp lines. So I want to also implore you that if you have anything to say or you have any response to give, you can always reach us on the WhatsApp information that will be dropped on the description button. All right. You are welcome once again. We want to proceed from where we stopped 2 weeks ago on our Research Saturday program. We are looking at literature review made easy. So we said we are simplifying the process of literature review. Like we know that we have established it over the time that one of the major areas where people have problems when it comes to thesis writing and dissertation is the aspect of literature review. A doctor friend asked me the other time, he said, how do you come by all this content of your work? Because sometimes when I'm working, I get stuck on the way. I smiled, I said, it requires diligence to be able to produce something like that. Of course, it is God who is helping. Yet there is a place of reading different materials and coming up with words to fill, along with several other support around that. Okay, so literature review is a concept, is an aspect of research that many people find difficult to do. I have some people that I've worked for in the time past. There's a particular guy that said, this is the only thing that has been delaying my work. I think the friend had been on his thesis for like 2 years. And the major thing that is delaying him, is this aspect of literature review. So it was later, he shouted out, and thank God in less than 2 months, we were able to guide him, and we consulted for him, and he was able to produce his literature review in less than 2 months. And that's because of the size of the work. So this class, we have come to fill this vacuum of simplifying the process of writing literature review. And like we have clearly checked over the time, we have looked at several things that are required in doing literature review, most especially getting of materials, like we have rightly stated, getting of different materials. We have checked that, and we have also checked the different types of literature review that we have. We have the traditional literature review. I did not put that there. Okay. We have the traditional literature review. We have the systematic literature review, bibliometric review, and also we have meta-analysis. This is not all. We have book chapters, we have conference papers, we have unit writings, and several other writings that involve literature review per se. In fact, we also have book review. All of these, they require the expertise of writing literature review. Okay, so we have taken time over the weeks. You can always check our previous posts on YouTube to see different posts that we have released in the time past. All right, so this 2 weeks ago now, we looked at the theoretical review, constructing the theoretical framework. And at that time, we checked the different steps and approaches that we pass through to be able to produce the theory that backs up a work. And of course, we also looked at examples of different works and the theories that they have used. To those who joined us, if you remember that we said it clearly that theoretical review is the theoretical framework is the aspect that creates a basis for our study. When you know the theory that guides a particular work, it will be easy to know where to turn to, what exactly to do, what exactly you want to do, especially in the choice of the parameters that we call variable. In the choice of variables to use, this knowledge of theoretical framework will really guide and it will help. And to really help. Okay, so this day we want to check conceptual review or conceptual framework. What is the difference between these two? Conceptual review is talking about the detailed explanation of the context, the concepts of your work. The detailed conceptualization. You want to conceptualize your work. You want to. Thank you for joining us. You can please mute your microphone so that we can have free class. All right. So like I said, that conceptual review means we want to review, we want to give our works a concept. We are going to look at that practically. We want to give a concept to our work. We are looking at different things that have been in existence. That's conceptual review. Conceptual framework, you want to bring in some diagrams to be able to explain or to capture the whole essence of your work. That's conceptual framework. We are still going to be checking them one by one. And after that, we also look at the empirical framework. We'll look at the empirical review. How do we come about that? All right, so let's set the ball rolling from the conceptual review. Now you want to do a study, you have your topic already and you have conducted a theoretical review to know the theory that backs it up and the major aspects that you want to focus upon. Now it is time to give concepts to your work. Let's come up with let me just use an example for us here. Let's say we want to check the willingness of customers to adopt the use of technology. Willingness of customers, did I say customer? Let's use business owners. Willingness of business owners to adopt the use of technology. Of course, I know this is a very broad topic because it has been narrowed down in different units. I've seen works that's focused on SMEs. They will say willingness of SME owners to adopt the use of probably POS in their places of work. I've seen works that dealt with willingness of SME owners to adopt the use of internet. So several works like that. But I deliberately said, okay, let's look at this very broad area of willingness of business owners. It may be SME, it may be a limited liability company, or any big firm as it were. Okay, their willingness to adopt the use of technology. The technology can be anything. It can be the internet. It can be the use of computer in the place of work. It can be the use of POS or any form of technological appliances. Okay, so if that is the concept that we are looking at, we are going to check the theory first, like we established last 2 weeks. And checking the theory, of course, we have different theories that could back that up. I think we cited an example of a particular theory, theory of plant behavior last 2 weeks. It's a theory of plant behavior. Is checking people's behavior, why they do what they do, What is responsible for people's action? Why will people do this or do that? Why will people reject this? Why will people accept this? Okay, so that's a theory. Another theory that can be useful in this sense, in the context of this work that we are doing, or the topic that I gave, another theory that can be useful is the theory of the TAM model now. TAM, okay? Technological acceptance model. That's the full meaning of TAM. Technology acceptance model. Of course, we are checking the willingness of customers to adopt the use of technology, or of business owners to adopt the use of technology. So a relevant theory that we can use in that sense could be TAM. We can use technology acceptance model. It's a theory and it deals with people's readiness to adopt the use of technology in their different fields. If we leave the field of the world of business, if you come to the world of education and you are checking the willingness of teachers to apply or to adopt the use of AI in simplifying the teaching and learning process, that's another concept. And in checking stuff like that, we have different learning theories. But in this case, to use probably Vygotsky or different learning theories that are in existence may not really work, because we are not really focusing on the teaching and learning. We are focusing on the teacher's readiness. So you are going to look at the major variable that we are dealing with. The major variable is going to determine what we are pursuing. Okay, so this theory now, the closest theory is the theory that is dealing with people's acceptability or people's readiness to accept the use of technology. So the fact that it is an educational research and you are dealing with teaching or learning in the school environment does not mean you are going to restrict yourself to learning theories in that wise. So I am emphasizing this because the choice of theory to use is very key in any research that will make sense. The choice of theory is very, very key. That is why I'm spending time in explaining, in ascertaining our understanding of this aspect. So like I said, the fact that you are conducting a research on education and you are focusing on, you are mentioning teaching and learning does not mean you should place the focus of your theory or you should adopt a theory that deals with learning and theory alone. Don't forget that in that case, we are looking at teachers' readiness to adopt the use of AI in simplifying the teaching and learning in class. Okay, so what we are focusing on is the teacher's readiness to accept the use of AI. So you are going technology. You will not focus on learning theories in that case. You will focus on theories that deal with acceptance of technology. I hope we are moving. All right. So having settled that, let's quickly establish something. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Right now. Sorry. All right, conceptual review. I have seen, I said it at the beginning of this training that the institution that you want to submit your thesis to, they have their standard. I have seen a university in Nigeria that they already gave a template of how they want their thesis to look like. Whereas some other universities do not have any standing template. But the wisdom to adopt in that kind of situation is to go to their database and get some works, some theses that they have done. Check what they have written in the different departments, especially in the department of your choice. Check the previous works in that department and check how they have done it, the arrangement, because it matters. Sometimes, in Nigeria, we like building castle around rubbish, things that can simply be overlooked. Our professors and doctors, with due respect, sometimes they waste time on it. And, because of that, sometimes they have delayed people. I have heard of, or I've seen someone, the supervisor that supervised me in my undergraduate years spent 9 years in my running master's program. You can imagine that, 9 years on masters. They did not release his certificates. They did not allow him to go, and he was there every year, re-enrolling and paying. You understand how that might be. And it's not because he has not done anything reasonable, but because of this sometimes useless matters that our scholars dwell around. I don't mean to underrate us. I don't mean to embarrass us, but I am saying this so that we can change the status quo of education in Nigeria, because sometimes wasting the times of students, the precious time of students, does not make sense. I heard of a woman who is currently running a PhD program, and she has been on this program since 2003. This is 20 years that she has been running PhD program. Of course, she might have her factors, but there is a way scholars can encourage people. In Nigeria, we are not encouraged, and that is why we are in the era of jackpass. People are just, we have our terms for it. We call them the Japarians. So people are just looking for every means to run away. Why? It's not because we are not giving quality education in Nigeria, but there are times that there is a way we handle ourselves, and I don't want to say it is inhuman. It is inhuman. Maybe in the subsequent times, we'll be looking at some things that are also happening in schools that do not make sense. In a situation whereby a lecturer and another lecturer are having beefing and a lot of rubbish is happening. This 2 months ago, I have heard of 2 cases of lecturers that slumped and died in their offices. One, I think, he sat down on the chair and died. Stuff like that. It doesn't make sense in the academic institution. Now, because someone is already working as a lecturer and this one is a senior lecturer, and because he did not bow down for you or something, like Aman and Mordecai at the gate, you are there delaying that person. You did not allow the person to graduate in the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. What is the meaning of that? So what am I saying in essence is that if you know the templates of your school, it will help you to know how to arrange, how to structure your work. It is very key. It is very key to know how to structure your work. Having said that, I have seen a school that what they used was conceptualization. Instead of conceptual review, they said conceptualization of the study. I have also consulted for someone and I used conceptualization of the study, and the school frowned at it. They said they don't want conceptualization of the study. I understood with them. Each school has its belief and standpoint. So I am saying it again that to know the choice of the arrangement you want to follow, don't just bring any innovation that your school may frown at. Please don't just bring it in. So if you use conceptualization of the study and they will rubbish your work, please don't use it for your school. Use what they are familiar with. Use what they are familiar with. Okay, conceptual review. When we say conceptual review, like I said, that we want to give concept to what we are talking about. All right, so in the explanation on the screen, we said it is the detailed explanation of the key terms with reference to contributions from different authors and the author's personal understanding. What are we saying here? To be able to produce a reasonable conceptual review, you want to know what exactly are you dealing with and what are the major parameters that can be inferred from what you are working with. So take, for instance, the example that we gave the other time. The willingness of business owners to adopt the use of technology. How do we build a concept or conceptual review for this? You are looking at willingness. You can't say concept of willingness. It doesn't make sense. There have been works on willingness, which may not even be relevant in your own area of study. But to focus on willingness alone doesn't make sense. All right? So you are checking willingness of business owners. Willingness of business owners to adopt the use of technology. Nothing is stopping you from looking at, okay, now don't forget that in your study, you need a case study. Of course, there will be a case study. So we can say willingness of business owners to adopt the use of technology in Southwest Nigeria. You can say in the eastern part of the country. Now, you have your area of focus. You have your case study. That's what I mean. Now, to build a concept for such topic, you can look at business, the concept of business in Nigeria. The concept of business in Nigeria. You are checking, what have people explained about business? What have they said about business? David 2003 might say, business is an activity of human being, is an activity of buying and selling among human beings. Rhoda 2022 may decide to say business is a concept, is an aspect of life's endeavor that deals with buying and selling. You will see that both of them mentioned buying and selling, but their renditions are different, but they focus on buying and selling among human beings. So you have seen something like that that makes sense. So what do you want to do? You have checked Rhoda's definition. You have checked David's definition. Don't write it word for word like they have put it. That's why you're a scholar. Understand what David said and write it in your own word. Look at David's explanation of business in Nigeria. The way he has defined or explained business in Nigeria. Look at it and understand it, then you write it in your own rendition. Look at what Rhoda has written and understand it, then write it in your own rendition. Now you have seen how both of them defined it. You can now move forward by saying it can now be seen from the two definitions, from David's and Rhoda's definition, that business centers around buying and selling. This implies that the aspect of business is two ways or two-sided, buying and selling. It deals with, as you are saying all this, you are already thinking and you're already writing your thoughts. You're already writing your thought that is relevant and that you, in fact, from the renditions of the two authors that you have checked. By so doing, what you are doing is you are doing conceptual review. You are checking, you are conceptualizing your work from what scholars have written. Conceptual framework. Okay? Conceptual review, rather. Conceptual review. So you are building a concept for your work from that end. Now, you don't forget that from your theory, you have some variables that you have seen. Okay? You have some variables that you have seen from your theories that will be relevant to your work. Now, those variables that we have seen, conceptual framework is also conceptual review is a good area to also give us meaning of those variables that you are using. Okay? Conceptual review is a good site, it's a good area where you are going to explain each variable that you are dealing with. All right, so we said willingness of business owners to adopt the use of technology, and you have checked the concept of business in Nigeria. You can also check concept of technology adoption. You can check concept of technology adoption. So in that situation, you are looking at how people have explained technology in the time past, and also you are looking at what they have said about technology and technology acceptance. All right. So when you are looking at different concepts like this, we call it the conceptual review. Conceptual review. So if you check conceptual review, you see that the basic thing that it's being done there is that we are checking different renditions of the explanation of each concept. By the time we move to empirical review, I will be juxtaposing the two. I will be stating some disparity between them, because many times students or researchers fall into the trap of conducting an empirical review under conceptual review. They are already stating what people said, what the conclusion of people is, what their methodology is. Under conceptual review, it is not done. In conceptual review, you are only to talk about the concept of what you want to deal with. You are talking about business, you are talking about technology, you are talking about technology adoption. Explain all those things in details in your conceptual review. The second part is conceptual framework. Conceptual framework. What are we doing under conceptual framework? Basically, conceptual framework, what we do here is only to give us a chart and a brief explanation of the chart. I call it a flow chart here. This can be any form of chart. So that chart is going to project the connectedness of your variables. That's the essence of the chart. I will soon open some examples of what I'm talking about. So the conceptual framework is to give us a chart, a diagram. It is not a framework if you have not drawn a diagram. Let me say it like that. We call it a conceptual framework because you are explaining the concept with a chart. So show us a chart that shows the connectedness of the variables you are dealing with. That's conceptual framework. So now in drawing this, we have 2D drawings. 2D means 2 dimension, and 3D means 3-dimensional drawings. So it can either be 2D or 3D. The 2D, of course, you know 2-dimensional objects. We have rectangles, triangles, square, circle, all those plane shapes, lines and basic plane shapes. You know, they are 2D, 2-dimensional drawing. So you can represent something in a triangle. You can use circles and connect them together. That's your conceptual framework. But okay, I said it can be 2D, it can also be 3D. And there are software that can be useful in that kind of situation. Recently, I came across ThinkCAD. ThinkCAD can be used to come up with a 3D drawing. And the reason why I fell in love with it is that it's a free software, only that you use it online. Many other software in existence are not free. Many of them are not free. but ThinkCAD is free. You can use it to produce a basic, an interesting 3D diagram. Okay, so you can also use this to project your conceptual framework. So, like I said now, conceptual review, what are we doing under conceptual review is that we are building a concept for our work. You are checking how have people explained each concept that you are carved out from your work. Okay, you are defining this. I want to be careful of the term defining, because you are not just defining in conceptual framework. You are giving a concept. You are conceptualizing your work. So you are giving us I don't want to use the word framework again now, but you are giving us a projection that depicts the essence of the variables that you are dealing with. That's the conceptual review. And the conceptual framework is basically a diagram. It's basically a diagram that is showing what you are talking about. All right, so let's quickly move now and talk about the next concept, and that is the empirical framework. Empirical framework. What do you mean by empirical framework? We said an empirical review. Okay, empirical framework, empirical review. Let me stay put with empirical review for now, and I will distinguish between them as we move. An empirical review is a review of previous empirical studies that are relevant to a specific research topic. Empirical studies are based on direct or indirect observation or experience of phenomena. An empirical review aims to evaluate, analyze, and synthesize the findings of previous studies and identify the gaps and limitations in the existing knowledge. An empirical review can also be an article based on an experiment conducted by the authors. What are we understanding from this concept or from this explanation? For empirical review, what you want to do there is to check relevant literature, those that have done works that are very relevant to what you are doing, and check what exactly are they talking, what do they talk about in their works, number one. Number two, which method did they use? Number three, what was their result? Number one, what exactly are they talking about? That's where you say David in his work, David 2003, in his work on the war between Russia and Ukraine, used, you have told us what David is working on. The next thing is to tell us the method that David used. He used an online survey and regression analysis to check the impact of the war between Ukraine and Russia on the economic situation of the world. Okay, now what method did he use? He used regression analysis. How did he collect the data? He used online survey. Okay, now that's for the methodology. Now you will now say, after stating the method he used, you now say concluded that 50% of economic growth is determined by the by peacefulness or by the states of affairs in a particular country. He concluded, however, that the battle between Ukraine and Russia, if it continues like that, will affect the GDP of the world trade market in the next 5 years. As you can see now that you have checked what David is writing about, the method that David is using. You also check the results that David has gotten, and you can just round that off by yourself and say, this shows that projecting into the next 5 years, if the battle will not stop, it can affect this. And now, check your work again. Someone said, if battle will affect the economic situation or economic growth of a country, there's a way it can be managed. So you say, however, Akilabi 2019 suggested that if there's a battle between two countries and it is consequently affecting the economic situation of the world trade market, something like this can be done. So you have checked Akilabi's work and you have checked what Akilabi profiled as the solution, as a way out to curbing the effect of war on the economic growth of the world trade market. So as you are doing this, you will check, you will see that you are moving from one point to another. You are checking people's work. Okay, what has this one written? What has this one written? What did this one get? Okay, is there any contradictory work? Okay, has this one done something that negates what this one has gotten? Is there any result that this one got that is different from what this one got? So when you are comparing and contrasting and you are checking like that, what has this one written? That is empirical review. That's empirical review. And a very good way to come about empirical review is what I have in these two steps that I have on the screen. The first one, I said, development of different contexts for the study. If you don't forget, the first thing we dealt with is conceptual framework, right? We are developing concepts. But this second one, you are developing context for your study. For instance, that is where you'll be looking at willingness. You have been checking willingness of business owners to adopt technology. Okay, so that is where you'll be checking words like, you'll be checking studies that they have conducted on willingness of for instance, you can say willingness of SME to adopt the use of internet. That's a topic, a subtopic you can check under framework. Check what people have written in that sense. Check, okay? Let's say it's not SME, it's a limited company now. What has this limited, okay, what have they written about limited liability companies? What have they written about their willingness to adopt the use of technology? You see that now you have created different subtopics or different subunits that you can now develop by looking at what people have done. So it is not something difficult to do. Just understand what you want to do. Each review or framework. Just understand what you want to do. It's easy. Okay, so the second thing is in-depth consideration of author's work and discoveries, including criticisms and appraisal. I think I've said that. So it's not something difficult that you are doing. Just check. What have they written about different contexts that you have created from your topic? All right, let me just pause for some seconds here. We have just less than 3 minutes to end the class, but I wouldn't know if probably those that have joined online or those that are physically present in the class have anything to say or any question to briefly ask before we round up the class. Any question or anything, you can unmute yourself and ask questions if you have joined online. And if you are here physically in the class, you can always ask your question or say anything you want to say at this point. Anything? Okay. All right. So we are rounding off this class by explaining that understanding each concept, each subunit of your literature review is very, very key. What are you doing under theoretical review? What are you doing under conceptual review? What are you doing under conceptual framework? What are you doing under empirical framework? If you understand each of these four things, it will help you to know how to move forward. So know what you want to do. Under theoretical framework, you want to check the theory that backs up your work, and you want to come up with variables that will be useful in your work. Conceptual framework, you want to explain those variables that you have discovered that are useful in your work and give meaning to them. That's conceptual framework. That's conceptual review. Explanation, in-depth explanation of each concept. Conceptual framework, you want to give us a chart that shows what you are dealing with. Then empirical framework, you are checking different contexts, and you are checking what people have written, the methods they have used, and the results they have gotten. By God's grace, next week when we meet, we are going to look at practical examples of what we are talking about. We are going to check practical examples of different literature reviews that have been conducted in the time past. So I want to appreciate everyone that has joined the class tonight, those who joined and left, and those that stayed with us to the end of the class. All right, so we are going to meet next week by God's grace, and we'll check examples of what we have been talking about